Have you ever kind of looked in the mirror and just wondered how you've changed so much over the years? And I'm not just talking about the obvious stuff, gray hairs or wrinkles. I mean those subtle shifts in your health, your energy, maybe even your personality. We're always told our DNA is this fixed blueprint for life, right? But if that's really true, then why do we change so much? Okay, let's get into it because it turns out we are so much more than just our genes.
So I want you to meet Dan and Scott Shillum. These guys are identical twins. That means, for all intents and purposes, they're genetic clones. They started out from the exact same fertilized egg. But by the time they hit their 40s, the differences were getting pretty obvious. Like Scott himself said, he's got a bigger frame, which, as you can see, Dan was quick to clarify. They have the exact same genetic blueprint, but their bodies have clearly taken different roads.
And that right there, that is the central mystery we're tackling today. If their fundamental code, their DNA, is identical, then why are they different? Why does one twin sometimes get a disease while the other one stays perfectly healthy? What is this invisible force that's rewriting their stories as they get older?
To solve this mystery, we're going to start with what scientists call the identical twin paradox. I mean, it's the perfect natural experiment, really, for untangling that huge, age-old question of nature versus nurture.
The simplest way to think about it is like this. Your DNA sequence, your genes, that's the computer hardware. It's super important, obviously, but it doesn't really change. What does change is the software, the programs telling the hardware which genes to turn on, when to turn them on, and, how loud to turn them up. And that software actually has a scientific name, epigenetics. This is the field that really holds the key to understanding why you and me and all of us are so much more than just our genetic code. So the epigenome, it's basically this layer of instructions that sits on top of our DNA. Think of them like little chemical tags or maybe sticky notes. They don't change the actual letters in your DNA code, but they act like dimmer switches or volume dials, turning genes up, turning them down, or sometimes just switching them off completely.
So where do these marks even come from? Well, basically, from life. It's our experiences, what you eat, your habits, any pollutants you're exposed to, even your stress levels. All of these things can add or remove or change those little chemical tags. In a very real way, your life gets written onto your epigenome.
And because no two people, not even identical twins who grew up together, live the exact same life, their epigenomes start to diverge. This whole process, it's called epigenetic drift. It's this slow, steady accumulation of different epigenetic marks that makes their genetic software literally drift apart over the years.
Okay, so drift sounds a little abstract, right? But what does it actually look like? Can we see it? Well, the answer is a big yes. Let's take a look at the visual proof.
And boom, this image illustrates the entire concept perfectly. On the left, you've got chromosomes from 3-year-old twins. See all that yellow? That means their epigenetic marks are almost identical. Their genes are being expressed in pretty much the same way. But now look at the 50-year-old twins on the right. Whoa! All that red and green, that shows major differences. It means in some spots, one twin is turning a gene way down, while the other is turning it way up. Their software has definitely drifted apart.
And the data? Well, it confirms exactly what our eyes just saw. This graph tracks the epigenetic similarity between twin pairs at different ages. Just look at the trend. As the twins' age goes up along the bottom, their similarity score on the sides steadily drops. It's a crystal clear pattern. The older you get, the less epigenetically similar you become to your twin.
And here's just one more way to look at it. This chart shows the actual number of epigenetic differences between twins. See how the data points for the younger twins are all clustered down in the bottom corner? That means very few differences. But look at the older twins. Their data points are scattered all over the place, showing way more differences. The drift is real, folks, and it is totally measurable.
This science has gotten so precise that researchers have actually developed something called an epigenetic clock. By analyzing the patterns of these chemical marks, scientists can figure out your biological age, which is how old your body acts. And that can be a much better predictor of your health than just the number of candles on your birthday cake. One of the most accurate ones is even called grimmage.
Okay, so here's the really crucial part. This epigenetic drift isn't just some random thing that happens to us. Our choices and our experiences can actively speed it up or slow it down. And researchers are finding out that one of the most powerful accelerators is something we all deal with.
And that brings us to the most personal part of this whole story, the connection between stress, aging, and, you.
So researchers at Yale University set up this absolutely fascinating study. They got 444 healthy people, they measured their chronic stress levels, they checked out their psychological resilience, and then they used that grim age clock to see what their biological age was. And the main finding? It was completely unambiguous. Even when they accounted for things like smoking or income, people with high levels of chronic stress showed clear signs of accelerated aging. Their biological clock was literally ticking faster than their real age.
Now, that sounds pretty bad, doesn't it? It kind of suggests that the wear and tear from a stressful life is just biologically unavoidable. But the researchers didn't stop there. They asked another question. Is there anything that can slow that clock down?
And here it is, the hopeful twist in the story. The study found that stress didn't hit everyone the same way. For people with high stress but low resilience, yeah, the clock sped up. But for those with high resilience, it was like they had a shield. It actually protected them from the aging effects of stress. Resilience was the game changer. So what is this protective resilience anyway? Well, the study pointed to two key psychological skills. First, emotion regulation. Basically, the ability to manage your emotions so they don't spiral out of control when you're stressed. And second, self-control. The ability to manage your impulses and stick to your goals even when things get really tough.
Which leads us with a really powerful final thought. As the researchers themselves put it, we're not just at the mercy of our genes or our circumstances. Our psychological health, our ability to handle stress and regulate our emotions, it gives us real agency, real control over our own biological destiny. It's an investment that pays off right down to the level of our DNA. So the real question is, what investment will you make in your psychological health?